either real or perceived contamination. So anything that would kind of prohibit its redevelopment. Examples of brownfields, essentially anything that has had a previous manufacturing, commercial, industrial use, and they're not always large facilities, as you can see, but it encompasses a wide variety of different types of properties. Why the interest in brownfields and why redevelop them? From a real estate development perspective, if I'm a real estate developer and I'm going to go build something in an area that's never had anything built on it before, then I have got to upfront spend a lot of effort and a lot of money bringing all the things you need to build some sort of structure. You've got to have roadways, you've got to have water, sewer, electricity, natural gas, curbing and gutter, stormwater control. All those are tremendous expenses that can oftentimes be foregone with a brownfields because those are already there. So it makes economic sense. And the thing I tell folks to think about relative to brownfields, it's not really intended to be an environmental program. It's much more of an economic redevelopment program, and those are some of the metrics that EPA looks for when they award this money. But it certainly reduces blight. Properties that sit idle have a tendency to be magnets for crime, for vandalism, and that further taps limited municipal resources for maintenance of these facilities and security. So to put them back into reuse makes a lot of sense. Nationally, for every dollar spent from a brownfields grant, it leverages about $17 of private investment. So it's the redevelopment impact on municipalities are definitely significant. And then recently, EPA completed a study, and they were able to demonstrate that in a small area around brownfields, within a mile and a half, redevelopment of these properties does increase personal property values anywhere between 5 and 15%. So the economic impact for those folks are real. And then for every $100,000 of grant money spent, it leverages about 9 jobs. So for a $300,000 grant, that has the potential to generate 25, 30 jobs, and that is also important. Where we are today, in November of 2017, we applied again for a brownfields grant. As you recall, we had applied before without success. These grants are unbelievably competitive on a national basis. Lenoir is only one of 144 national grantees, so that's something I think to be proud of for this community. And again, we compete on a national basis with everybody, so they are competitive. Our grant funding became available on October 1st. We have a number of priority sites that we identified in our application. Those are continuing to be evaluated. And as you'll see, we've got some progress being made. We have got a longstanding Brownfields Advisory Committee that is an outgrowth of the Business Growth Committee. And then we're also looking for input on other target properties. We identified in our application about 19 properties that we thought might be candidates, but we're always looking for more. Community outreach is underway. We gave a presentation this past Friday to the Rotary Club to give them an update on where we are and what we're doing. And in addition to tonight, there'll be other community outreach events planned. We have completed the first project that was a priority project, and it was the former city service cleaners. We have completed an environmental site assessment. We are petitioning the EPA for some grant funding to do some phase 2 work from our grant, and we believe that's going to be approved. This was spurred due to a potential real estate transaction involving the property that was hindered by the perceived environmental contamination. Again, if you remember one of the earlier slides, dry cleaners certainly fit into that category of properties that have those kind of issues. And the primary reason these things sit here is just people are afraid of them. They're afraid of the liability if they get into the chain of title. Most folks just don't have an exit strategy when they end up owning a property like this. And the brownfields approach is a good way to mitigate everybody's liability and put these properties back into economic reuse, create additional tax base and job growth. The other site that we're working on, and as part of our application that we put in, the city currently owns 15-acre property, a former Broyles plant. This site we already know is brownfields eligible. We've got our letter of eligibility. What we didn't have was the funding to take it through to completion. Well, fortunately, with brownfield grant monies, you can use a portion of those monies to take a site like this that's owned by a municipality through a state brownfield program and get a brownfield agreement. The brownfield agreement provides liability protection for a prospective developer. That liability protection is transferable. And unfortunately, in North Carolina, our program does provide some property tax benefits. And on larger developments, these are certainly significant. It's a sliding scale, but in general, over a 5-year period, you get about half your improved value credited back towards your property tax. So the difference between the unimproved and the improved, you get a good majority of that back. There are companies that specifically look for these types of properties simply because they can leverage a pretty good deal for themselves for redeveloping. We are also soliciting some additional funding to help with some debris removal, and then we'll use the grant monies to complete some Phase 2 activities that'll be required in order to what we believe will be required to take it through the Brownfields program. So those are two. We've got others that we're looking at, and we've got, I think, in terms of our discussions with EPA, we have monthly update conference calls with our EPA project manager. You know, they're happy with where we are. We've hit the ground running. What we're looking for and what the EPA wants us to focus on are sites that have a high probability for redevelopment. Anything that would that you have a private interest in that would benefit from this is certainly something we take a look at. They're looking for not just to take the money and assess a bunch of sites. They want to see them put back into reuse. Again, it's an economic development program and not an environmental program. So they're looking for job growth and non-residential tax base increase, and that's part of the metrics that they look for when we report to them. One area that has significant interest because of some investment activity in the area is the Fairfield South area. The city has a number of priority sites clustered very close together that have some private entity interest, and we're going to be reaching out to those folks and working with them to see what we can do relative to our grant to help them move those projects forward. Radford is our city project manager. I manage it on behalf of the city for Mid-Atlantic. Brian Gross is our EPA Region 4 manager down in Atlanta. He's been very helpful to us, and we're probably going to add a community outreach liaison at some point. We're just a little bit too early in the game to do that. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have or any comments.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
No, I mean, I just want to say, I know you've heard me say this before in the past, that this has been a long process and a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of man time, a lot of woman time have gone into doing this, to making this happen. So I specifically want to thank Radford and his team and Greg for really pulling this together. This has been something that I personally have been working with the city and Lane and Mr. Hildebrand and all that stuff since I've been elected, so it's almost 8 years of work that's gotten us to this point. And so the fact that we've got a grant and we're moving forward and identifying these sites and are starting to clean it up, it's really cool to kind of see it come into action. So this doesn't just happen overnight. And just when people realize how much work goes into just doing this, it really makes you appreciate what we're doing to make this community better. So,
just to try to put it into perspective, you know, I said earlier that the grants are competitive, but I'll give you an example. A year or so ago, I wrote a grant for a small municipality, much smaller than Lenoir. The EPA evaluates these grants. There's a 200-point scale, and they tell you what the points are and how they're assigned. This particular grant scored 195 out of a possible 200 points and did not get funded. Mm-hmm. So that just you just about have to be perfect with the story. These are not huge documents. 15 pages. You got to tell your story in 15 pages. And it sounds easy, but it's extremely difficult and competitive. And again, Lenore should be proud to have one of these grants because there's probably, out of the 144 that got them, there are probably another 375 that did not. So it'll really make an impact on the community. It certainly will. Well, thank you very much for having me. I certainly appreciate it, and I look forward to giving you more positive updates in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Appreciate all your work on it, and we're excited that we are at this stage and moving along and identifying things, and already have a piece of property that could hopefully be back in good use here in the future.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing too. Radford just reminded me, this grant is a 3-year grant. So we've got 3 years, so there's no real rush to try to accomplish a lot, but we need to kind of move through it. But we've got 3 years. It's been my experience in working municipalities. You kind of run out of money before you run out of sites.
Right.
So that's why we're continuing to look at sites and add sites, because what we'd like to be able to do is to, at some point in the process, make another application for an additional grant to keep our monies flowing so that we've always got resources to apply to these kind of properties.
Do you go to the back of the line once you've gotten one, or is it all
No,
based
it's,
on
I
the
tell
merit
you,
of each project?
the EPA will deny this, and nobody will ever say that this is the case, but it's been my experience that the hardest grant to get is your first one. But if you get it and you do a good job with the grant, it just seems like the subsequent requests seem to be easier to get. I'm working with one municipality that are on their 4th assessment grant. And it's almost automatic, but they do an exceptional job with their grant monies. And from the EPA's perspective, you're a lower risk grantee because you've already demonstrated that you can take their resources, use them wisely, and at the end of the day, we've got to go back to them with success stories because they're being evaluated by Congress and their bosses relative to how they're allocating these funds. So it's our job to go back and take them some success stories that they can take to their boss. And but it will. This was the hardest one that gets the first one, but we'll do a good job with this, and there'll be others coming, I'm sure. Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you very much, Greg. Okay, we'll move on to matters scheduled for public hearing this evening. Our first one, and the only one we have, a conditional use permit. This is for 1015 Ash Avenue. This is a quasi-judicial public hearing being held to consider a conditional use permit for property located at 1015 Ash Avenue. That's North Carolina PIN number 2749771412, parcel ID number 06-4-1-6 for the proposed 3-unit multifamily townhouse in the Central Business District, which is B3 zoning district, known as the Education Foundation Teacherage, with the following conditions. Number 1, prior to obtaining zoning and building permits, the applicant shall submit plans for appearance review to ensure aesthetically appealing architecture that is in harmony with existing structures and the B3 district. Item 2, sidewalks must be installed to connect to sidewalks on either side of the property to match existing widths or meeting the minimum city standard width of 5 feet, whichever is greater. Item 3, all lighting shall be fully cut off and shielded so as to minimize light spillover onto adjacent residential properties. Number 4, the apron and at least the first 15 feet of the driveway from Ash Avenue must be paved. And item 5, valid permits must be obtained for this project, and all construction must meet the requirements of the City of Lenore Code of Ordinances, the North Carolina State Building Code, the North Carolina State Fire Code, and any other federal, state, or local regulations that apply. Okay, so I'll open the public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to address the council concerning this conditional use permit, please come forward, give us your name and address. And of course, Jenny Wheelock, our planning director, is here also. And they'll have to be sworn in if you would like to speak.
Sorry, do I need to tell? So,
But just to-
before we start, I just want to let everybody know, and Mr. Blair too, that I have served on this board, the Education Foundation, which is applying for this as a voluntary. I'm past president of this board and have been familiar with this project, but received no monetary stipends or anything from that. So I wanted to be sure that everybody knew that, and that if I needed to recuse myself, I would, but I don't think I have to, but I wanted everybody to be.
What's quasi judicial, so the
You
rules are.
believe you can hear it and be objective and comfortable hearing it?
Oh, I'm sorry, what did you say?
You believe you can hear the evidence and make a decision based on the evidence and be?
Yeah, yes, no, I respect that, but if, I mean, if.
Then I think
With it
respect
being
the board's-
quasi judicial, does that make it any tighter for him to be on there than it would normally be?
I'm sorry.
With it
Yeah,
being,
it would, I think it would, yes,
Okay.
but I think there's not an inherent conflict, I don't believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
You have the staff report in front of you. This was considered by the planning board last month. We had one resident neighbor come out to that meeting for a point of clarification and then stated he was in favor of the project. The planning board did vote to recommend approval of this project. You've got the sample findings in your staff report. Staff and the planning board both found that it met all of the standards for approval. Just as an aside, this is the downtown zoning district, which should be sort of the biggest, baddest zoning district we have in the city. 3 units is the smallest apartment that meets the definition of apartment and therefore gets triggered into this conditional use process. Next week, the planning board actually will start to consider an ordinance that would make smaller projects like this by right, because I think they really do fit into the context, and it would help future projects that fit avoid this process. But for now, it's conditional use permit. I've got Hannah Williams, project planner, is in the audience if you guys have some technical questions, but I think it's a pretty straightforward project and actually reduces the number of units that previously had been on the site before the house was demolished. So happy to answer any questions, and I know the applicant can speak to the nature of the project as well.
Ed, does she need to adopt the report or basically?
I guess I should officially submit the report for the record. And everything in it is true to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
Thank you, TJ. Keeping it straight.
Yeah, well, occasionally people do get fussy about these things later, so.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blaster?
I'm Jesse Plaster. I'm the project architect. I'm just here to answer any questions that might come up during your discussion, architectural, aesthetic questions, things of that nature. The overall plan is to provide affordable housing to 3 new or young teachers moving to the area. It's 3 separate 2-bedroom units, each with full separate living, dining facilities, gravel surface parking in the rear. From the street, I believe it'll look a lot like a house. It will be in keeping with the other houses in the neighborhood, similar square footage. I don't think it'll be out of scale or out of keeping with the other structures in the neighborhood.
Okay. Okay, any questions of Mr. Plaster or Mrs. Wheelock about the plans for the property or anything? Or any questions about anything? Okay, is there anyone else that would like to address the council while we're in the open session for it? Public hearing? All right, seeing no one, then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll turn it over to city council. Would you like? Yes, come on up. We will reopen the public hearing.
Yeah, that's what this is what I'm for this case.
This is not, we're only in this matter right now. Okay, yeah, we'll have a place on that for that in a few minutes. Thank you. So again, I will close the public hearing concerning the conditional use permit for 1015 Ash Avenue, and turn it over to council for any discussion or action.
Make a motion, we adopt the proposed findings, conclude it meets the requirements of the law, and approve the permit.
Okay? I like that, it's good.
Very well stated.
Every once in a while, I'd like to sound like a lawyer, just to put people off their expectations.
Just to throw people off.
Some good lawyer terminology.
Thanks.
And I will add, somewhat related to this, I'm glad to hear that the planning board is considering
Yes.
making this process a lot easier and not having to go the conditional use route moving forward. I understand why we have to do this one now, because that's where we are now, but good job.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Councilmember Rohr that we accept the conditional use permit for this as presented with all the frills and things included in that. How's that?
That's very lawyery.
Yeah, the frill.
Conditions, all the conditions that are involved. How's that?
Incorporated herein by reference.
Yes.
Any other discussion or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. That carries unanimously, which is 6-0 tonight with one missing. Thank you all for your work on that. Appreciate
It's a
it.
great project.
Yeah, we got, as long as we have Jesse under oath here, we might.
He's out.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that's all we have tonight for, scheduled for public hearings, so we'll move on to our consent agenda items, which consist of minutes of our city council meeting of Tuesday, October 16th, 2018. Item B are minutes from our committee of the whole meeting of Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018. Item C is an agreement with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments. This would be for the approval of the City of Lenore entering into an agreement with Western Piedmont Council of Governments in the amount of $30,000, not to exceed, in accordance with the attached proposal to provide grant administration and technical assistance for the EPA Brownfield Assessment Program, which you heard about just a little bit ago from Mr. Eisenhower. Item D is a proclamation for Giving Tuesday. This would be an approval of the proclamation proclaiming Tuesday, November 27th as Giving Tuesday throughout the city of Lenore and Caldwell County. Note, Giving Tuesday is a global giving movement that has been built by individuals, families, organizations, businesses, and communities in all 50 states and in countries around the world. Giving Tuesday inspires people to take collective action to improve their communities, give back in better, smarter ways to the charities and causes they believe in, and help create a better world. Additional information for this may be found at www.givingtuesday.org, and we do have a proclamation for that, which we approved last year, and I will present to be approved again for that, and it was established as a National Day of Giving on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving. I won't read the whole proclamation to you, but we do have a proclamation for that. And then item E is the city council meeting time change. Due to several conflicts on December the 4th, 2018, it is requested at the city council we begin our regular meeting at 5 o'clock p.m. in lieu of Mr. Blair, and 5 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock.
Instead of 6:30.
And the meeting will be held at the city county chambers located at 905 West Avenue. So that is your consent agenda. We'll open the council for any discussion and/or motions concerning that, or any questions.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
We have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Willis to approve the consent agenda items A through E as presented. No other discussion. I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. And we'll now move on. It's time on our agenda for if there's any requests, any petitions of any citizens who would like to address the council. This is the time, and if you will, please come to the podium and give us your name and address, and welcome.
My name is Julia Reed, and my address is 930 Emerald Place. I have a petition here from my neighbors and on my street and the surrounding community. asking for your help with a problem we got in our community.
Okay,
There's a property at 934 Emerald Place that, I'm gonna start with how it looks. For the code, it's not up to code, I'm sure. The house has not been kept up well for a long time. There is 2 or 3 sliding glass doors that have no deck. They have a ladder going up to the back. There are windows out. There's trash, including appliances in the yard. Right now, there's a washing machine that's sitting down beside the garage doors that's been sitting there for I don't know how long. This property, I know who the owner is. And right now, and had for the past several years, it's occupied part of the time by the owner's son. I'll just go ahead and say this, lots of times he's in jail and there's nobody there. But we have contacted the city office, and we've also contacted the police department. For the past several months, it's just been worse. There's a lot of activity, foot traffic, vehicles. I mean, sometimes there's days it's like the McDonald's drive-through is what I call it when I call the police department. Several of my neighbors are here, and they can tell you the same thing. We spoke to Brent Phelps the other day. He said they have had 27 calls in 3 months to this same address. There was a shooting there this past Saturday night, it was more of an aggravation than anything else with the traffic and the people and the noise at 3 and 4 in the morning, the fights and all that stuff. But now it's actually gotten dangerous because one of my neighbors, they're not here tonight, but their name is on here, they had a birdhouse on a metal post. There's a bullet hole in that post, and we heard the bullet. We heard the shot. That's the house right next to them. And then this past Saturday night, the police were called, of course, and there's I think they said there was 3 or 4 bullet holes on the inside the house, 2 through a window. And this happened about 12:15. We heard it, and it woke us up. But any help you can give us in seeing if we can speed up getting something done for this would certainly be appreciated. Who do I give the petition to?
bring it to me. Actually, give it to Shirley Clark, thank you. And we'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if any of the rest of them have anything to say or not, but I know there's, one lady lives straight across the street and one lives beside them, so.
If you'd like to, if there's anyone else who would like to address it, if there's anything else to add, you're welcome to do that.
It was a quiet neighborhood at one time. I'm sorry, Shirley Daniels.
Okay.
I live at the first house on Emerald Place.
What's that address?
1011 Emerald Place.
Thank you.
And we have an 11-year-old granddaughter that lives with us, and I don't let her out of the house because we don't know what's going to happen. And we had people coming, knocking on our door 1 o'clock in the morning and thinking they had the right address, but they had the wrong address for the people that at 934. And so we want to stop it before it gets any worse. We need something that, so it doesn't get worse, you know? It's a drug house. People come and go all the time. And otherwise, it's a quiet street. So, you know, we just want some help to find out what we can do.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and yes, if you'd like to, please do.
My name's Julianne Reed. I live at 1201 Virginia Street. I'm their daughter. I live in my grandparents' house, which was my mom's mom, and it's a quarter of a mile from that neighborhood probably.
Mhm.
And I actually know the son that lives in 934, and I grew up with him. So he's around 40, 41, something like that, and he has been a known drug dealer for many years. And he is been in and out of jail lots of times. But it's not only 934 and Emerald Place, it's spilling out into the entire area. I caught 2 people walking across the back side of my property. My property joins the city and the county. I have a pasture in the back. They were coming towards I saw him almost dark, and I thought, who is that? And as soon as they saw me, they said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "Wait a minute, who are you?" I think her name is Anna. Is it Anna Talbert? Anyways, I know her dad too, or I knew him, but he's also in jail. But she said, "Well, we didn't know this was anybody's property." I said, "Well, you knew it wasn't yours. Where you headed?" 934 Emerald Place. I said, and I knew right away what that was about and where they were going. So, and they walked that entire area, that particular couple, a girl and a guy, I don't remember what he said his name was, all the time, carrying backpacks. It's constant. Cars are stolen, stuff's missing. One of my old employers' father's car was stolen and found on the street. It's ridiculous. And the house does not meet code, nowhere close. There's a giant hole in the back of it. And it used to be a really, really pretty house, which is a shame. So,
Okay,
yes, definitely need to do something with that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Chief?
First off, on behalf of the police department and the city, I thank you for coming up here. A lot of times when we have problems or concerns, we struggle in getting interaction from folks that live in the area. So thank you for coming. Thank you for engaging us. And what I hope is when this is over, you see that the folks that live there in the police department and the city have worked in a partnership to help rid that street of what's going on. Pretty much my knowledge, the bulk of everything they said is very close to being accurate. There are some serious concerns with 934. It is on our radar. Within the last 60 days, our narcotics officers have done a search warrant, that's public record, at that location. There is a son that lives there. The property's owned by the parents. We did have a shooting there Saturday night, which is concerning. There are things being done this week. There were several meetings on Monday with several supervisors and staff with the police department. Our code officer met with Jenny and the staff there to see if we can look at all available resources on the code side and a law enforcement side. We'll have to run those as separate investigations, but we're going to look at all available resources. As the chief and as the representative for the police department, it's frustrating to me that we have citizens that are at the point to where they feel like they have to ask for help, because we're not going to put up with this type of activity in our neighborhoods. And we are going to put forth all as much of our resources that we can legally put forth to it to clean it up, and whether that is to put this gentleman back in jail or to use the resources to potentially tear the property down once we meet those criteria, we're working on it. Questions? Some of those things I can't answer at this time, but
Yeah, and I actually have a question for Jenny, though, as to, I know we have a matrix as to when things are, how we approach different things and at what level and what pressures are put on based on that matrix. I don't know if you're at liberty to say where this one ranks, but I would think the last 3 months with that activity should have elevated it substantially.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
It's been on our radar for a while. From the exterior, we know there are some issues. It previously, a couple months ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said, no, it's not a tear down. It's an issue with a tenant. What I've recently learned, plus, 27 calls for service ranks it right up
Absolutely.
at the top, and we're gonna work in conjunction with the police department, because we don't want to go, serve an administrative warrant if they're trying to serve a different kind of,
Right.
we want to be smart with what we do, but it is pretty much one of the top priority houses at this point. Yep. It likely has escalated to a tear down. That's probably what we'll push for.
Okay,
Yeah,
I hope so.
yeah. Any other questions?
Is there any other questions
Me
of
or Chief?
Chief Phelps or or Jenny?
I guess I have a question to the extent it's possible to answer this. Have we reached out to the owner in any way to see if the owner can do something about what apparently their son is doing?
From my understanding, we have sent the owner a letter back when we did the search warrant a couple months ago. I don't know if we have spoken to them recently. I know I was on Emerald Place with our detective captain today, about 11:30 on the street, assessing the house due to the rise in the concerns. But that is definitely on the list to accomplish.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Thank y'all for what I know you're doing. I know, we know the difficulties of what you're trying to deal with, and thank y'all for coming and bringing that to us. And I think you've heard what they will continue to do. It's on the radar, and I think they will do everything we possibly can through the law that we.
We want to thank the police department for coming out every time we call and, checking it out and doing what they have to do or can do to take care of the situation.
I think he came to my house at 5:30 one morning. Look, I don't even remember his name now, but I told him thank you, and he had been up there the previous night. So, he was still coming. So I do appreciate it, and I really appreciate you being here and everything. But if I can say one more thing, the parents, they're enablers, big time. Anybody will tell you that, because when they get him out, he will leave for a while. He'll be gone for a little while, and even this summer, he left.
It was the explosion.
Yeah, he left for a while, and he lived in another one of their rentals. That was out in the county. Well, that is, I don't know if you know about it or not, but supposedly a car that was sitting in front of his mobile home that he was living in exploded, blew up, something that had caught on fire, and it caught the mobile home on fire and burned it down. So then now this is a coincidence, maybe, I don't think so. The next morning, one of the front windows in that house was broken out. He was back in it. But Mom and Dad come every once in a while. It's the stepdad. But they'll come every once in a while, and then when he's in there and stays for a while, you don't see him for a while. They'll come and clean it up, but that's the problem you're gonna have.
They're scared of him.
Yeah,
That's what they
That's what the
are afraid
problem
of him,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they're afraid of him, and I don't really blame them.
Right. Well, thank you again for bringing this to us, and we will certainly do everything we can. Sorry that you're having to have to deal with these situations. But thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time on our agenda? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on. We do not have any reports of our boards and commissions this evening, so we'll move on to the report and recommendations of the city manager, Mr. Hildebrand.
Mayor, council, several items for your information this evening. First of all, as you're probably aware, Thursday and Friday, the city will be closed, City Hall will be closed in observance of Thanksgiving holiday. The planning board is scheduled to meet next Monday, the 26th at 5:30 in these chambers. The committee of the whole meet on Tuesday, November 27th, 8:30 a.m., and that'll be third floor City Hall. The Foothills Regional Airport Authority will meet on Wednesday, November 28th at noon at the airport. And the annual Christmas parade will be held on Friday, November 30th at 6:30, and that's downtown Lenore.
Everybody all right?
We're okay.
Tonight, on the agenda, we have one item for your consideration. As you're aware, the fire department transfer or exchange is moving forward. We have tonight a promissory note and loan agreement with Blue Ridge Electric. As you're aware of the project for the fire station, we're looking to borrow $1.36 million from Blue Ridge Electric. That'll be a 10-year term at 0% interest. And in order to go back and move forward with that, we need to go back and approve both the promissory note and the loan agreement. The local government commission approved this financing transaction, I think November 6th of this month. So, and Blue Ridge has it on their board meeting tonight, so.
Good.
Excellent.
Good work on
Yes.
making sure it's still fit, because it's such a good option for us, so.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve that agreement.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Stevens to approve the agreement of the promissory note and loan agreement with Blue Ridge Electric Membership Corporation as presented for Lenore Fire Station number 3. Any other questions or discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Carries unanimously. Proud to be moving on, Chief. I know you're excited too. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay, we'll move on. Any report from our city attorney, Mr. Blair?
Mr. Mayor, I need to meet in closed session with the council to discuss a real estate transaction and also to give an update on some pending litigation. Also, I need to address the council about something else, and I prepared a statement to read to you.
Okay.
Come December, it will be 26 years ago that I became Lenoir City Attorney. It's been a wonderful and a fulfilling experience. The legal work has been challenging and interesting, and yes, even fun. I've been privileged to serve as legal advisor and advocate for the city I grew up in and for which I have deep affection. I've been privileged to work with so many good people over the years. I've witnessed our staff and our city officials work together with the people of Lenoir and Caldwell County for the good of our community. And I know from personal observation and experience over these years how local government can work successfully when good, well-intentioned people share common goals and efforts. Serving as Lenoir City Attorney has been a true blessing, but the time has come for someone else to assume this responsibility. So I ask you, Mayor Gibbons, and members of the council to begin the process of identifying and selecting a new city attorney sometime after the end of this year. I thank of all of you, as well as your predecessors and those many good people with whom I've worked over these past years, for having made my service as city attorney so fulfilling and satisfying. There's more than I could say or even tell, but I'll save those stories for another time. I plan to continue practicing law as an attorney in Lenoir. However, in recent years, I've enjoyed pursuing some other personal interests and activities, and I look forward to having more time available for some of these pursuits. Again, I thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Blair, we thank you, and we certainly, we appreciate everything that you have been a part of in this city for 26 years. When this finally happens, we will miss you, but we will certainly work with you to help us as we can look for a replacement for you in this post. But we thank you for all you've done, and I hope after this finally takes place, we'll do something very nice and formal to say how we do feel about what you have meant to this city, because you have really done an outstanding job, and we thank you for that. I think everyone on this council and prior councils and prior administrations can all say they have enjoyed their time working with Mr. Ed Blair as the city attorney of the city of Lenoir. So thank you very much. We knew the time was coming at some point in time, and so we have been making some preparations and thinking about, and we appreciate that you will help us as we move forward with that. But we appreciate it. Anyone else can add anything? We'll really do that at a later time, but thank you for letting us know that. As I have a couple of recommendations to make to you. One, I'd like to recommend Ms. Shauna Banner to be approved to serve on a 2-year term on our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I think Shauna would be a great fit to that board. She's very active and involved in our recreation programs here athletically and other things that she has been involved in, so I think she'd be a good fit. And I also would like to recommend to you Mr. Ben Boaz be appointed to serve a 3-year term on the Lenoir Housing Authority Board. I have discussed this with Mr. Deneen and the Housing Authority, and of course Mr. Story, our Recreation Director, about these two appointments to that. And also, I guess I've got to tell you, I'm serving as the chairman of the Airport Authority, and I would be great if you would reconsider reappointing me to that board.
Do you recommend yourself?
I do not recommend myself. I throw myself at the mercy of the board on that, but I do enjoy being a part of the airport board, and I think it's made great strides. We're moving in the right direction in a lot of things. The property is got a lot of things happening there. Hopefully one day we'll we'll see some
Taking off,
future.
isn't it?
It's taking, it's taking off, yes, it is.
Be here all weekend.
So anyway, I would make that,
Can we make those as one motion?
you
Or would
can,
like so?
you can.
I will make a motion that all three of those be approved.
Okay, a motion from Councilmember Purdue that all three of the appointments to the Recreation Advisory Board, the Housing Authority, and to the Foothills Regional Airport Authority Board be recommended. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. And as we get ready to go to a closed session, I would like to thank everyone for all the things that have been happening, our downtown staff and others for all the good things that have been going on over the last few weeks. Our barbecue festival was a great success. I don't know that we've met really much since then. We actually missed the other meeting to that. I think we maybe discussed it at our late meeting in October about it, but anyway, that was a great success. We just held Light Up Lenore and the Downtown Christmas Tree Festival were both this past weekend, and both were very successful events. Kyle, thank you, and all of our department heads for all that you did. Jared, I know you were really involved in a lot of things going on. We had our police and fire, as always, were there taking care of things, and we appreciate that. I think everyone really enjoyed it. Christmas season is, even though we hadn't gotten to Thanksgiving yet, it's still here. Our downtown light show is already going. Hope you have already enjoyed it for a few days, and it will be here till, you gonna fall on the floor? Till January the 2nd, I think, and I hope you can go down and enjoy that. Christmas parade is the 30th. We have a lot of entries into the parade, so I think that's going to be fun as always. And hey, we wish High Brighton the best in the next few weeks as they continue their playoff run again. They won last week. They have South Point coming up. I don't want to point this out, but the last time High Brighton lost.
I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, I'm not saying it.
Don't say that. Don't
Anyway,
say it.
When was that? That was so long.
That was several years ago. But anyway, we hope that won't happen, and we hope they will continue to move forward as they are in the quest of another state championship. So anyway, we need to go into a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143-3. Well, let me ask first, do any of the council members have anything they need to bring up? It's not on my agenda, but anyway, we need to bring that up. Are you in the floor?
Yeah, I'm joining Ike.
Thanks, TJ.
Yeah.
Anything anybody needs to?
I will make a motion, we go into closed session.
We have a motion to go into closed session pursuant to that 143-318.11, subsection 5. We enter into it to discuss potential real estate contract and an update.
On litigation.
Do we expect anything?
Stopping these on a roll.
No,
Okay, all right. I have a motion. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Got it, one.
Got a motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. We're in closed session. In a minute.